Hey everyone, this is Corrie. This is a bit of a part of my podcast channel, I guess. But I want to talk a little bit today about, well, she is more than existing. And as I'm putting together boxes as well for the cards, assembly crew. This is the assembly crew. And so as I'm sitting here and I'm working with the boxes, but the oracle does speak as I'm here, is I want to talk a little bit about betrayal. And it's so big, and it's so big everywhere, and it's so easy to betray ourselves. And betrayal is something that we look into the reflection of what happens outside of ourselves. But we don't always look into ourselves of how easy it is to betray ourselves, and how we betray ourselves in so many ways that we don't even realize sometimes what we do to ourselves. And so there's so many places in my life when I think back, and when I think about creating these cards and the oracle cards, and writing the books, and especially when I was writing More Than Existing way back when. And I think about old relationships, like way back to younger years, and not to really sit in the past, but think about those times of where you would repeat these stories and these narratives to yourself and say, I can't believe, this person did this to me. I let this person do this to me. And it was ultimately where the betrayal comes in, is in what we know, or the flags that we get and we don't listen to, and we don't pay attention to. And sometimes it's very like a boulder being thrown at us, and it hurts like hell, but yet we keep repeating, going back, doing the same things over and over. And as I look at this beautiful She Is, and this is She Is on the cover, this is She Is, that's her name, She Is. And She Is the Everyday Miracle. And as I look at the She Is of life, it's like, she is no fool, but yet she lets herself be made a fool of, yet she lets herself be laughed at, yet she denies herself the opportunity to empower herself, to be self-empowered. And so back to that, thinking back to that younger version of self, and what it felt like to be that young version of self, and being now 53 years old, is I think back to relationships of where, you knew there was things that you just knew. I knew I was being cheated on. I knew somebody was having affairs. I knew other things were happening. I knew I was being lied to. I knew I was being betrayed by others. I knew somebody was talking about me. But yet my inability to let go was so strong, and that lack of, sense of self-worth was really truly muted by old stories, and by that fear of being abandoned, or letting go, and telling ourselves that it's things, that relationships were love. Well, it was love. I love this person. No, you didn't love that person. You loved the identity. And more that you step into that truth was, if I think back now, when it's like, no, I love the idea and the ideal person that I would create. And then you hold on to those sparse, very sparse moments of when they were truly good, or truly nice, or truly did good things for you. And you so easily let slip to the back of the mind the not good things that these people had done, how cruel they had been, how self-centered, how selfish, how those things. But yet we want so bad for something to work out. We want to be in that relationship, that we're willing to sacrifice the one thing that we really need, that we really truly need. And that was the best kind of partnership. And that is the partnership with the self. And so thinking back throughout life, and into my, not always even in my earlier years, but in earlier years of life, I just remember, if I were to reflect back on hurt and not to betray myself, the feeling to feel and sense and see the hurt, was that people really hurt other people, and that it was the damage that was done of betrayal it has its own form of PTSD, because being able to trust anyone else becomes very hard. But where we begin to be able to trust again is to learn to trust ourselves. And once you learn to trust you, and once you learn to begin to, recognize that you're screaming from the inside, your anxious anxiety you have, your over obsessive repeating conversations in your head somehow holds weight and truth. But they can very much also affect and influence your relationships that are trying to enter into your life that are healthy. And when we feel that sense of betray and we keep betraying ourselves, is that we never learn to regulate that self and be able to tell her she is safe, she is loved, she knows what she's doing, she's getting this right, she's figuring it out. If somebody else chooses to do that to us, we know what we'll do this time around. We know what we'll get right. We'll get it right. We'll get it right. Like, we'll leave. We'll walk away. We won't listen. We won't ignore and neglect the things that we once would let pass. We'll have the conversations. We'll bring it up. And we won't just accept, the fact that somebody gives us the story that makes us feel better about ourselves. It's so easy to just accept, oh yeah, they just said this is not what happened. But yet you've got 1,000 other validated facts that say something else did happen. And in the meantime, you'll betray yourself to hold on to the image, the created story in your mind of the fairy tale life that you really want to live, but you'll never get closer to the fairy tale. You'll never get closer to the authentic life. You'll never get closer to the truest, happiest of life, as long as you still exist in the misery. As long as you still stay in that hurt, you still stay in pain, because even though you're pretending to the person that you're with, internally, you're still struggling. Internally, you're still wondering. Internally, you're still guessing. And when that owns you, that has such power, is that it does affect the healthy relationships that are cultivating within your life, in your today's. I myself know that so freaking well. And I know it in such a way that if I were to think back into the relationships in my younger years, is if somebody that was nice and good came into my life, I would find a problem with them. They would be wearing black socks. They would be wearing New Balance Walmart shoes. There would be something. I would find the simplest little thing to actually make them disgusting to me, to turn me totally off from this person. I would never be able to say to myself, like, well, maybe they just don't give a shit about that, because that's not a priority, because they're not trying to sell themselves to me. They're being themselves. But when I would see somebody that was that attraction to the bad boy, to the image of knowing that they were already avoiding, they were already distracting, they were already not giving you your time, they were revealing all of their truth in the very beginning, but yet you're like, oh yeah, no, that's just who they are. They're just such a free spirit. They're just such a bad boy. And, I just love the bad boys. And no, you love the abuse. You love the mistreatment. And it's not you love it on a soul level. You love it on a shadow essence, because it allows you to keep betraying yourself and to keep repeating what you have become comfortable with in your life. It keeps you being able to stay in the addictive habit that we have of the patterns that have been imprinted, that we have had follow through in our lives. Because wherever we've been neglected, had emotional immaturity, wherever our needs did not get met, we didn't fight harder for them. eventually we got broke down, and eventually we accepted that was just the way it was. People are just that way. And so we became like the easygoing. Oh, I'm just so easygoing. We avoided conflict. So in order to avoid conflict, we'd betray the conflict. We'd ignore the conflict that was happening inside of ourselves, but yet we would create chaos, and chaos would be the part of this self. And I've done that to myself. I did it so many times. Do I still have it? Yeah, it's still there. Do I question it? Yeah. But who do I trust now? And I can trust myself that I'm safe with me, to know that I'm making my wiser choices and decisions based on my truth and what I need. And that when I am faced with something that is no longer in alignment to my ethics, to my sense of restored integrity, then I'm no longer allowing somebody else's weaker sense of self, their excuses, their isms, their addictive patterns and behaviors to take away from my growth, my growth, my self-development, my stepping forward, my walking my path. Is I'm just going to keep moving forward, and I'm going to keep moving up. And it may hurt, but I also know what love is. And I know love is an action. And love holds the action in how people show up to be there for you, to be in your life, but also that people are not responsible for my happiness. People are never responsible for my happiness. People are never responsible to, make me content. But anything that is damaging and destructive that they bring into their lives that affect my life, or any sense of not telling a whole truth, is not acceptable. Even if it hurts, that's love. Be more willing to tell a truth to set somebody free and allow somebody to be set free than to hold somebody on a string. To keep people hanging on with false hope, false truths, and illusions of what could possibly be. It's much more loving and kind to let somebody down than it is to keep offering up false hope and false versions of yourself. And people say, oh God, but it's so hard. I can't just tell them. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. You can just tell somebody. Rather than betraying you or betraying somebody else, it's easier. Let somebody go before you do something that is hurtful or harmful. What's so hard about that? Who it's hard on is hard on you. And so it's a very selfish and self-centered thing that people often try to reflect away from themselves. And very much that's where the deception is. That's not hurting anyone. It's not, it's not hurting anyone if they don't know. Well, they do know, and people do know, and we know. So there's so many little things and so many different ways that we can tell ourselves these stories. And these stories are always around us. Always. So as I'm putting the cards together, what came up was the sense of deception and betrayal. And I'm going to tell you how it started. And it wasn't even a relationship where it began. It's the relationship with myself. So when we first got these cards, I literally I said we have to wrap them in ribbon and put a little sticker on them, and then put little tissue paper at the top so the cards don't move, and fold it all up. And then when we send them out, we'll wrap them again and put another little ribbon and another sticker and pack them all up, and we'll put them in the box. And yeah, people will really appreciate that. And that was my self-deception. That was me trying to be enough. That was me already telling myself that these beautiful cards, which are very powerful and are so incredible, that I was somehow telling myself that these cards were not enough. And if I added more fluff to it, if I fluffed it up, then it would be enough. And if I prettied it up, if I be enough, if I give more of myself, then it'll be enough. And I won't have to deal with, people criticizing or not liking them. People are going to fall in love with them. People are going to fall in love because I give more of myself. That's deception. That's betrayal. And that comes from years of being betrayed, being knocked down, being made fun of, being mocked, and being so sensitive to it. It was the fear of myself and the fear of letting myself know that I am enough. And because I am this person who knows and sees, is all the things that I would see in the world and that was wrong, and I'd see in relationships and I'd see happening to myself in relationship, is I would tell myself that that was foolish, that wasn't real, that wasn't right. And so I was deceiving myself so many areas in life. And as I was sitting here packing these up and they're going out as they are, beautiful, beautiful booklet, beautiful cards in the beautiful box, is they don't need anything else. And that's where I know that I've come so far in my own journey, is that I don't have to give any more of myself. I don't have to be anyone else. I don't have to wear a mask. I don't have to step into that sense of creating the personas. This is just enough. This is enough. And that in order to heal that sense of betraying myself and self-deception, is I don't tell myself any lies. I don't tell myself the little lies that feel like they're truths. I don't need to pretty it up. It doesn't need a ribbon. It don't need a bow. It don't need tissue paper. It don't need anything. It just needs to appear. And it is enough. And it's always going to meet the shadow of somebody else who's going to judge it. And so is ourselves. We're always going to meet people who are going to betray us. We're always going to meet people who are going to be unkind. We're always going to meet that part of the world. We're going to meet that in relationships in all forms. We're going to meet that in just the random stranger. We're going to meet that in the person who takes your purse. We're going to meet that all over, because it's always existing, because shadow will always exist. Somebody else will always exist in their story. They'll have their patterns, their behaviors, their actions. But when you start to really, truly step into strengthening your own sense of integrity, doing the foundation work, and really getting that sense of knowing who and what you are, you no longer betray yourself. You no longer walk away from that which you know within yourself, but you also no longer allow the old shadow, the old brain, to keep telling you narratives and stories that keeps you from being able to celebrate the beautiful things that are coming in your life. So sitting with this deck of cards is that I'm actually able to sit with this knowing of celebrating this beautiful creation, the beautiful artwork, the teamwork, the everything that went in to creating this. And that this was a project of absolute love. And it was a project that came of me having to really walk through my own shadow. They didn't just appear. These weren't just cards that were created and it's like, oh, there's a story, let's put it in. No, it took 2 years to write the book. It took 2 years for me to put after the cards were done, because I shared side-by-side pictures of the cards on Facebook for all 45 cards for 45 days. And every time I would put one up, I'd have to look at myself and I'm like, that's me. That's my shadow. That's my story. That's what I tell myself. That I need to be more, I need to add more, I need to, oh my God, like this is my essence of this shadow reflecting back as my truth. But that's not my truth. That's not who I am. That's not what I am. That's not any of my story. Where's my story? Where's my truth? And it's so buried and hidden behind. And realizing that I just didn't trust myself. I didn't have that. I trusted myself for everyone else. And I trusted myself to show up to do my work. But in my own life, is that whatever was coming up, so I wouldn't be abandoned, so people would stay around me, so it would just, so there'd be more positivity, was that I would continue to always believe that I was some sort of a problem, and I would have to fix me and fix something inside of myself and give more of myself, rather than questioning the shadow, the hungry ghost, the energy, vampire energy that was coming in and coming around me. And as I start to do that, I realized that I also had a lot of that past relationships that I still allowed to be in my life in one way or the other, because it was all about, I was so forgiving of them. They were just people, but it was my choice. I still chose to allow people to have space in my life and in my head. I still chose to step back in, which was me having to take responsibility. I did that. But what was my why behind it? And heal that deep-seated why. And then I realized when I realized that a lot of these people were still around in my life because I was giving space on Facebook and in places like that. Because I'm like, oh, it doesn't matter. They don't mean anything. No, I was letting them access my life. And I began to start to delete. They don't have access to me. I can trust me to know that I can let those people go. I'm not hanging on to hungry ghosts of the past. I can let these people go and not have them in my life and not have them on my page and not even seeing what they're doing in their lives, because it's neutralized and they mean absolutely nothing to me. The past stories mean nothing to me because I'm done betraying myself and I'm done trying to be more. And that was a huge epiphany. And that really brings us to the place of opening our heart, being able to trust in myself, to allow healthy, beautiful relationships to enter my life and not to let the old stories, because of the old pains, destroy them. She is more than existing. And it takes a lot of getting to know you to know which version of you you're bringing in to more than exist. I just wanted to share that today as I'm putting together these cards. I send you so much love, and I will be back to some podcasting coming up, but I knew this was for the podcast channel because this is about us everyday women and our everyday lives. Don't betray yourself. Send you much love. Bye-bye.